in the state police, you can't run for public office. It's a conflict of interest, and rightfully so. They kind of change the rules now so you can do the school boards and that kind of stuff. But elected positions that are paid for, unless you get permission from the superintendent, you really can't do that. So I never really got involved in politics until I retired in 2013 when I ran for town judge in Plattekill. It was a special election. And, but like everyone else, there's office politics, and you have your ideas and your own concerns that you know, and so you get involved. And I wanted to make a difference, and that's why I decided to run for elective office. And I was lucky enough to win this election. It wasn't easy. It was tough. I kept it clean, never said a negative thing about my opponent. I respect my opponent. He did 44 years, and anyone that did 44 years defending the men and women of this county deserves accolades, and I said that all along. And you know, the proof is in the pudding. I was not negative, and it was a tough race, and politics is tough. And that's one of the things that I learned. If you know the organizations I just told you about, the Marine Corps, the state police, resident of this county, then you know who I am. I'm middle of the road, pragmatic thinker. Yes, I'm a registered Democrat, but I wasn't always a registered Democrat. As you know, my opponent put out 2 flyers. One was with me, Pelosi, and the governor saying stop this progressive attack, and then the other one was me as a registered Republican 4 years ago as a wolf in sheep's clothing, and that was sent to Democrats. It's politics, it's part of the game, and it's what you have to deal with when you're involved in this line of work. And so it's not easy. It was tough, but I will tell you that I work for everybody. I don't care if you voted for me or not. I work for every single person that's in this room. And when I make a decision, I base my decisions on everyone in this room. You may not agree with me, I may not agree with you, but we're going to learn how to respect each other, because that's who I am and the way I was raised, and the leaders that I work for in the state police and in the Marine Corps. And so, with that said, any questions?
I got the first question. All right. We approached Assemblyman Cahill to put in a bill to have the Sheriff's Office, Fiscal Permit Bureau sign the amendments. Going back before we met with Cahill, every judge in Ulster County and Sheriff Van Blarkham supported it. And through our talk, you supported also. But that may answer a lot of people's questions. But you can talk on that if you want.
Sure. So that was actually one of the questions that was brought up at my last meeting with the Gun Club up in Wittenberg. And ironically, there's only 2 counties that are having issues with amendments: Ulster County and Columbia County. We've been receiving letters from our constituents involving amendments, and the issue was Penal Law 400, paragraph 10, subdivision B, and one of the judges, and I'm not going to say his name, but one of the judges says that, and in the law, if you read it, it says, shall be considered revoked if you don't recertify by a certain date. But if you go on the state police website, it says that it's not supposed to be a gotcha thing for pistol permit owners, and that the purpose of the statute, the law, was that it's supposed to be a record-keeping part of the law. So when I got these 2 letters that were sent to the constituents from the judge, I sent an email to the judge's office, and I asked him for explanation as to why he's saying that these individuals are revoked when the law doesn't. It says shall revoke if you're not recertified. The state police is actually accepting people that have recertified late, and I said, would a letter stating that they were recertified suffice? And I got a response. I sent an email, I got a lettered response from the judge, and he said that his understanding of the statute is that if you did not recertify by, I think it's January 31st, that you are considered revoked, and he's not going to be doing any amendments. So I took that memo, that letter, I scanned it along with the 2 letters that I got that he sent to constituents. I sent it to the Sheriff's Association, and I sent it to the State Police Council. I also spoke to a couple of other folks in the Assembly, including Assemblyman Cahill. And so the response was, one, that's his interpretation of the law. And he's basically saying, so I asked him, what is the due process, the judge, what is the due process for the individuals that you're saying that their licenses are revoked? What do? What's the due process of law? Because you're not stating or saying what they can do if you're saying that they're revoked. So what do they do after that? His response was they have to apply for new pistol permits. And so I took that memo and I sent it up to the Sheriff's Association. And obviously I am against that. You already went through the pistol permit process. These are just amendments. These are not new pistol permits. The state police is saying it's a record-keeping part of the statute. It's not a gotcha for weapons owners. And so what the Assembly folks told me, including Assemblyman Cahill, that the only way you're going to fight this is if you take it to court. You have to sue the judge. And that's what you folks are going to have to do. You know, that's what you're going to have to do. I agree with what you folks are saying. You already have your pistol permit. Amendments, the reason why they're doing away with, the Sheriff's Office used to do amendments. And what happened was one of our counties south of us started taking a stamp and just stamping everybody without letting the judge know. The judge found out, and they made a rule throughout the whole state that we can't do that anymore. That's what happened with the amendments. And so when they made the new law with these recertifications, I have to recertify too as a retired state police investigator. I have a state police superintendent pistol permit. I don't have a county pistol permit. But I have to, as a retired guy, recertify as well. You know, after 25 years in the state police, am I happy about doing that? I will tell you no. But I did it because it's the law. And that is the law. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are. So the only solution to this issue, and I'm still waiting on a response from the Sheriff's Association. The Sheriff's Association has lawyers, and they look at the stuff and they lobby. I was just up in Albany lobbying on behalf of the Sheriff's departments throughout this, offices throughout the state in reference to some of the bills that they're trying to push through the Assembly and the Senate. So that's what's going on with amendments. I am a believer that once you get your pistol permit, that if you want to buy a new gun and it gets amended, that you should have that right. You already went through the process. Why would you have to get a new pistol permit? It makes no sense to me. So I am with you on that, and that's been told to the judge, and the judge is Judge McGinty. And so that's the issue, and that's what's going on right now. As soon as I get a response back from the Sheriff's Association, I know what they're going to tell me. They're going to tell me someone has to sue, or you have to lobby the Assembly and the Senate to change the law. And I know that's not a good or fair answer.
That's what we've done. We've lobbied the Assembly.
But that's what's going on. I think if you want results, you may have to take them to court. Because there's no due process there. It doesn't say in the statute that you have to get a new pistol permit. And again, the purpose of the statute, according to the state police, if you look at the Q&As, it says it's a record-keeping part of the statute that they said. And remember, this is a fairly new law. So the state police understands that, but that wasn't the intent of the law. But the judge says that that's his reading of the law. And again, the only 2 counties that are doing that are Columbia County and Ulster County. Nobody else in the state is doing that. Sir?
Question then. I was under the impression that it wasn't the Sheriff's Department that was rubber stamping the green card. It was the judges that were signing them and giving them to the Sheriff's Department ahead of time. So if what you're saying is McGinty is determining his impression of the law, what?
You got 2 different things here. You're talking about the penal law with McGinty and amendments, and then why the Sheriff's Office used to do the amendments, but because the Orange County Clerk and the Orange County Sheriff's Office were
said
using
they couldn't pre-sign
Correct.
Right.
That's why
but
they stopped
we
that.
weren't rubber stamping things.
Right.
The judges were pre-signing. And according to McGinty, I think he was saying that we couldn't do the rubber stamping.
No.
So is he against what the other judges were doing?
Well, his interpretation of the law is separate from what happened in Orange County. The reason why the sheriffs can't do amendments is because of what happened in Orange County. What happened in Orange County was they were taking the stamp and they were stamping the amendments and not sending them up to the court. And it wasn't being documented properly, and somebody found out about it and says, hey, you can't do that. It's got to be an actual licensee officer, which is one of the judges. So that's what happened there. Judge McGinty is a separate issue. He's interpreting a section of the penal law 400 subdivision, paragraph 10 subdivision B, and stating you shall be revoked if you're not recertified within that time frame. That the laws, I think it was December 31st, I'm not sure about the date. So some people didn't recertify, but they went later on and recertified, and he's still saying that's not good enough. But it doesn't, he's saying now that you're revoked. And he's also saying that if you want, because I asked him, so what is the solution? Everybody has a due process when you go to court. Everyone has a right to know what they can do afterwards. And his response was that you have to get a new pistol permit. I disagree with that.
Now, I have a question.
Sure.
Now, didn't they extend that due date? Didn't it go from January, went further out into the year because the state police couldn't handle all the applications?
That is partially true, that there was a backlog, but that was never the intent of the law to begin with. That was strictly a record-keeping part of the law.
Yeah, but
So it's misinterpreted.
Yeah, but my point was though, if this guy, if it was a case, if this guy was one of them guys that got caught in not having the state police handle his application right away, and was delayed in getting it, then why should he be penalized for that at all?
I agree with you, and it's a new law. And in the website, it says even if you recertify late, they're still accepting recertifications. If you look it up online, that's what it says. And it says it's not a gotcha for pistol permit holders. It actually says that in the Q&A section of the New York State Police, involving the pistol permit section.
Yeah, it's penal law 400.
400, paragraph 10, subdivision B.
Okay. Just spell the judge's name, the other one?
McGinty.
Yeah.
Is that the female McGinty?
And
It's both.
It's
Husband
the
and
male,
wife.
the male.
There's a husband and wife.
It's the husband. It's the husband. Well, actually, we're not having issues with the wife, we're having issues with the husband.
Really? I thought it was her.
And the way they do the process is that it goes to the one of the court clerks and they split them out amongst the licensee officers.
So you're saying we need to sue McGinty specifically,
What the assembly is
but
saying.
this is based on recertification, not amendments.
Revocation.
This
So-
is on revocation,
Right, not
recertification. That's
Right.
separate from amendments.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So
So
the amendment bill, to touch up and follow up on the amendment bill, I spoke to Kevin Kayla. Actually, I was up in Albany on Saturday, and he said that that bill is dead in the water due to the nature of the assembly and the makeup of the assembly and the Senate. So it's not a good time to bring that up. But he may bring it up again, but there's so many other things that are going on right now that's in the bottom of the pile for him.
We'll be bringing it up with a different document.
Right.
well, it still has to pass the Senate as well. and
It's got to go to the assembly and the
Not
Senate.
like
What
this.
he's saying is it's
I don't
not
think
like it.
Andrea is going to pass it
Exactly.
either.
Not in this assembly and Senate.
Well, just step back a minute. Cahill said that it had a shot if we use an example of husband and wife co-own a
Or
firearm or a
father and
handgun.
son or whatever.
So it's on both of their permits. They get a divorce. She's afraid he's going to hurt her. And she wants to buy another handgun because he took all the handguns. So she goes to Gander Mountain to buy a handgun. Now if McGinty gets the damn amendment, 10 or 12 weeks. McGinty signed mine, it was 12 weeks. I just had another one, it took 2 weeks.
Right.
But here's this
It
woman.
depends what judge you get.
So,
Here's a woman that's afraid for her life. You can't go out and get a handgun to protect herself. And she gotta wait possibly 10 to 12 weeks.
Because he got arrested for a domestic violence this morning.
No,
No?
I'm just saying, they're divorced.
Right.
She's afraid of him.
Right.
She never got a order of protection or anything,
Right.
but she's afraid that guy's gonna hurt her. Now she wants to go buy her own handgun because he took all the handguns, right? She wants to buy a handgun, now she may have to wait 10 to 12 weeks.
It's up to the judge.
Right, it's up to the judge, but that was how we thought, collectively, that's how we thought, my understanding anyway, I don't know about yours.
that was his selling point, that
That
he
was
thought
his
he could
selling
go.
And it's a good selling point. The issue is the makeup of the assembly is very, very liberal right now, and the makeup of the Senate. And he's saying it doesn't have a chance at this point.
Because you and I both know it's only a clerical issue.
It is. Amendments, you already did your pistol permit, you did your background checks, you have weapons, you own them already. An amendment should have been a simple thing like it was before, where you just say, okay, it's amended, you can go pick up your gun. Now you gotta wait for your coupon, and it takes a long time to get it, and I understand that.
For what Cahill told you, that it's dead in the water, I don't even think he drafted a bill.
All I know is the makeup of the assembly and the Senate right now,
Understand that.
that it can't be sent right, it can't be done right now. And that's what he told me. And that was Saturday.
Okay, so given that fact, your position is that you're for allowing the sheriff's department to process amendments because it's clerical and
I am.
it's
I am.
basic. Okay.
That's correct. I'm
And
in favor of that.
are you willing to advocate for that? I mean, not obviously we wouldn't ask you to go up to Albany and start charging down doors, but would you be willing to author a letter, a positional letter saying that you're?
It seems to me you have a bunch of folks right here. You can set up a petition, and I will sign that petition.
We did.
2,000 signatures.
Over
And
2,000
I'll
signatures.
sign a petition, sure.
But that was to Cahill, and that was last year, and that was before the landscape shifted in Albany. So, I mean, basically,
I am in support of doing amendments and having the sheriff do it. It was like that in the past.
right. It's a clerical issue.
Right,
I
it's
mean, that's a
completely
perfect position.
It is completely clear.
Assemblyman Brian Miller said he would run with it. And it may be dead in the water, but at least it'll have a shot. Because I seriously don't think that Cahill ever drafted a bill.
Well, in addition,
He did call me when I won the election in November and asked me about it, and I returned the phone call. So he was still working on it
Okay.
in November. But I think,
So he approached you?
yes, he did.
Okay.
Executive Hine was in favor of it. The judges were in favor of it and expressed support in written letters saying, you know,
Which judges, remember?
Well, that was before McGinty was
Okay.
elected, so.
yeah. Well, that was before Sarah was elected. I don't know when he was elected.
Oh.
He's been there a long time.
He's been there a long time, I think.
So maybe he did sign.
But he's hanging up. He's not hanging up on amendments. He's hanging up on revocation and recertification.
Recertifications,
Yeah,
right. If you're
that's his
waiting
hang
on
up.
recertification, he's saying, you're revoked and you gotta get a new pistol permit.
And he covers Columbia. That's why those are the two counties that are having
He
issues.
covers Ulster County.
Oh, okay. He does.
Columbia's a whole set, they have the same issue there.
There's another
I don't know what
judge in
judges it
Columbia.
is up there.
Okay.
But it's the same issue that they're having up there.
Okay. So could you just take a minute before we run out of time and discuss your position, your viewpoint of the SAFE Act? Do you feel it was necessary? You know, what's your position on it? Where do you stand?
So, my job is to uphold the law. If the county, the state assembly and the Senate pass a law, I have no choice but to uphold it. I say the same thing to the folks who sent me emails and messages saying, you know, marijuana, you should tell your deputies to stop arresting people for marijuana. I can't do that. I can't pick and choose what laws I can uphold and not uphold. I will say this. The only people who are only going to put the amount of ammunition in the, you know, your magazines, like the SAFE Act states, are probably law-abiding citizens. You can read between the lines on that. You see what I'm saying? And so some things are realistic. I haven't seen anybody prosecute anything like that. But that's the way the law was written. And you can read between the lines on that one.
Okay, so
I'm not.
He's not gonna go on the
You know,
record.
the law is the law. I mean, I have to uphold whatever the
Yeah.
law is.
okay, so that's
You see where I'm getting though?
yeah. No, I do. I hear you saying is I'm law enforcement and I have to enforce the law.
I have to enforce the law.
Okay.
Now, realistically, if you have a magazine and the limits are, what, 7 and
10.
10?
It was 7, and then it
Right,
was
so
no.
it's 10 now.
Yeah.
Unless you're on a range at an event, and then you can have all 10 in
Right,
there.
right. I mean, if you can counter your ammo when that happens, it's on you. But I can't even see how that's even enforceable. It's tough to do that.
Okay, so one of the things that I heard feedback from the Wittenberg, somebody who attended a Wittenberg club, was that the your position of being required to enforce the law kind of shifted when the discussion came towards sanctuary city. So, with respect, can you just, I guess,
So
talk about it?
I think people are confused when they use, and they get caught up with the term sanctuary city. If you break the law, whether you're a citizen or not a citizen, you're gonna get arrested. So sanctuary city may mean something to one person, it may mean something to somebody else. But to me, if you break the law, you're gonna get arrested. Period.
So, if you don't have legal status, you're not a legal citizen, and that person.
Let's talk about that.
That's
So let's
pretty
talk
much what
about
people
that.
consider.
Sure, let's talk
the
about
concern.
undocumented citizens. I'm just gonna answer this question, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was an English teacher, so I like dealing with definitions.
Right.
What does sanctuary city mean to you?
To me, as a law enforcement officer, it means absolutely nothing. You break the law, you're gonna get arrested. People get caught up on terms. I'm not gonna get caught up on terms. I'm gonna uphold the law.
So does that
So-
make room for? Is there a protocol? I guess where the thing is with the sanctuary cities is it won't get referred to INS.
So let's talk about
Okay.
let's talk about the topic,
Okay.
which is immigration, undocumented folks.
Okay.
And this is something that you may not agree with me on,
Right.
and that's fine. But I'll say this: if the laws that we have today are in place, 80% of the people in this room would not be here because your parents would not be allowed in this country, and that's a fact. 1925 is when they started the visas, and you can look that up yourself. I'm not making that up.
Well,
So with that said,
Can I put in this though? With all this going on and said,
right,
with Ellis Island, I work down there, know the history of all that stuff.
Right.
You know, we all wouldn't be here,
right,
like you said,
right,
okay? But when them people come in there, every one of them had to have documentation. And they took them in there, I did work there, we fixed the rooms where they disinfected them people and humiliated them people to make them get here, but they had their paperwork right, you went in.
but there were no restrictions like they are
If you didn't
today.
have the paperwork,
But there were
they
no
put-
restrictions like there are today.
They put
You
you on
can
a
come in
boat.
this country.
No, if you didn't have all your documentation, they
Right.
put you on a boat, and they
Right.
sent you back to where you did, till you got your documentation.
Right.
So, I don't have a problem with any
Right.
of them people coming into this country,
Right.
but have your documentation. And that's what they're trying to get there, to have that come here,
Right.
and where it is. Look at the people up there right now from Guatemala and Kingston that are having a hard time. They're crying about that on TV and everything else. You see that on Cable 6, all that right there.
Right.
They don't have the documentation. They're not getting their right parts there. You know what? If you had that, if you come here, you got all your rights to be in this country.
You have
You know?
all the rights that a citizen has.
Yes,
That's
but
right.
you have the
You
rights
have
to
due
be there.
process.
But you don't have all the documentation.
But they're
But
already,
then they get more rights than the citizens that have it.
but they're already here. And some of
They're
the
here.
kids are American kids.
Yes, yes.
And how
I know
many
that.
times have you heard the story that people were shipped back to their country? Human nature, and we're all humans here.
But how many
Let-
times
let
did
me-
you hear
let me
that the
finish.
guy was here?
Let me-
Listen
let me
to me
finish.
first. Listen to me
I
first.
have listened to you.
Listen to me right
So-
now. No,
so-
1 minute. 1 minute.
So I'm trying to explain something to you. So what do you think is going to happen when after the 6th or 7th time of this person being deported? Anybody think about the cost of that too, and how much money?
No,
it
what
costs?
about the guy that's
That's
been
a,
here for
the
15
immigration
years?
issue
Get his
is a
paperwork right
federal,
in there.
it's a federal government issue. It is not a local issue, and it's a civil violation to come in this country illegally. It's not even a criminal violation.
I don't
if you
care
know
if it's
that.
criminal or not,
But I'm telling you what the law is.
you got a guy who's been here 15 years, they should have got their paperwork right. You know what? And then you have a family, yes,
I
and you're
understand.
working here and you're doing great.
I-
Yes, you're working alongside
Right.
me, and you
Right.
know what? I'm your friend.
Right,
But you had that 15 years to get that stuff right.
right. And what
You
happened,
know,
what's been
that's
happening,
what aggravates me.
what's been, and I understand that.
We're not here to argue with the
What's-
sheriff. We're
No,
here to
that's
hear
all
the
right.
sheriff. We're here to share. We're here to hear
This
the
is a good
sheriff's
conversation.
perspective.
This is a good conversation. So I'll say this, my job as the sheriff, as the conservator of the peace, I need to know who's in this country, who's in this county. Why? They may be a witness through a crime that occurred to somebody in this room. They may have gotten into an accident and killed somebody. We start putting people in the box, we're gonna have the same thing that we had when the 5 families were formed down in New York City. There's a reason why organized crime exists, because they don't trust people like me, law enforcement. And that's a fact. They're already in this country. Their kids are American citizens, most of them. They're doing jobs that our kids, our nieces and nephews won't do.
Well, no, I
They
understand
work
that. I
hard.
understand that.
Most of them are hardworking people, not all of them are criminals. And if they're criminals, they get arrested, they go to jail. When they get done doing their time for their crime, because I arrested a lot of them, in particular from Colombia and Mexico, we ship them back to their country.
I think, one second. If somebody is unregistered
Undocumented.
and they undocumented and they get arrested, it's not up to you to tell ICE.
It is not.
It's automatically done, am I right?
When you get fingerprinted, if you're wanted and it shows up, you're gonna, when you have a warrant against you, you're gonna get arrested and ICE is gonna come pick you up. But I, for the purposes of public safety, I'm not gonna contact ICE. I'm not. That's not my job. I'm not an immigration officer.
Well, don't they know already?
When you get fingerprinted, it does get in the system, but it's only if you want it.
Only if you're a criminal,
Correct. Only if you're a criminal.
prior record.
Yes, sir.
My question was, what is your feeling about they want to give undocumented aliens, not a driver's, identification cards to the DMV? Now, that's what's come up recently, I believe. They're going to wind up giving them identification. Now, if they have identification, they can also vote. Meanwhile, they're not even citizens of the United States.
Okay. And I understand that.
And why would we do that?
So let me explain my policy and the way I feel about that. Before 9/11, anybody can get a driver's license in New York, even undocumented people. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
That's right. I'd rather have somebody have a driver's license and I know who they are, even though they might be a fake name that they're submitting. And by the way, they have to have proof of where they live. They have to have some sort of even if it's a birth certificate from the country. I'd rather have them with a driver's license so I know who they are. Why? Because if there's a crime, I can track these people down. If they're a witness, I can track these people down. To me, knowing who's in this county is protecting everyone in this room, whether you believe that or not. That's a fact.
But why should that documentation?
That documentation
allow them to
does
vote?
not, you still have to be a U.S. citizen to vote. That has not changed. That has not changed. Just because there's a motor voter registration, you still have to have proof of citizenship. You're not automatically given, voting privileges because you have a driver's license. That's not the law.
Brian?
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, my name's Brian Mitchell, prior board member. Not to cut this thing short, but you were invited here tonight to discuss basically gun control. We're a Rod and Gun Club organization.
Thank you, Brian.
Now we're getting into immigration. What's next? Gay, lesbian, LGBT, whatever the hell it is. Basically, I'm not going to put you on a spot. What is your opinion on law-abiding citizen applying for a pistol permit? Should he be allowed to get it, or should he go through the hoops? Are you pro-gun or anti-gun?
I own 8 guns. If you're a law-abiding citizen, of course I'm in support of you getting a pistol permit. That's never going to change. As Americans, that's our God-given right. And nobody ever said, I never said, and I know people went knocking on doors that were against me stating that I'm going to take your guns away. I'm the sheriff. I'm not a legislator. I'm not an assemblyman. I'm not a senator. The only people that can do that and change the law are the people who are up in Albany. That's not my job.
Thank you.
Two questions. One, if I could just summarize, since I'm recording notes here.
Sure.
Essentially, to follow up the undocumented thing. So your position, if I can summarize, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, is I will not contact the INS because there's no directive or protocol that requires me to do so.
Not just that. This is America. And everybody has the right to due process in this country, whether you're a citizen or not. You get arrested, if you're undocumented, it doesn't mean I'm going to tell you to get out of the car without a warrant, without you saying it's okay. This is still America. So due process to me is important. If you're a criminal and you're undocumented, you're going to get arrested and you're going to be held accountable for your crime. And if you get stopped for a vehicle and traffic stop and you don't have a license, and that's all we got on you, and we bring you in to identify you, at least take prints from you, and we have nothing else, I'm going to let you go. I got nothing on you.
I can't talk.
This is still America, people. This is the land of the free. It always will be.
Because not having a license is not the grounds for arresting
It's
somebody.
only a violation.
Okay.
It's not a crime.
So you would give a summons or whatever?
I would give a
if it were-
summons.
Right, okay. There's no directive or protocol that requires you to contact INS?
That's correct.
Okay. But if there is some sort of directive or protocol in whatever situation, then you would follow through because you're law enforcement,
If you
you're not the judge.
broke the law, if you're undocumented and you broke the law, and it's a public safety issue, it's a violent crime, or you were dealing drugs and it's a felony, damn right I'm going to contact ICE. You violated the law. But if it's a vehicle and traffic stop, and I have nothing else on you, there's nothing for me to hold you. Unless ICE has a warrant signed by a judge, I'm not going to do anything about that. He's going to go. Why? I am not going to put these groups in a box. I need them to feel comfortable with me. I want them to tell me when there's a domestic violence dispute. I want them to tell me when they're a witness to a homicide. That's my job, public safety.
Are you familiar with the pending red flag legislation?
Explain it to
in
me.
Albany? Okay, well, where it's proposed, it's not a law at this point, but it's proposed that if your neighbor, if you suspect there's an issue, or someone in your house, or a teacher suspects some problem in the household, they could call and snitch or whatever, and then all of a sudden some law enforcement agency shows up and confiscates.
And there's no due process.
The concern is that the due process that's there is weak. It's not strong enough, and I'm not sure how
So
familiar
I was
you
up
are
in
with that.
Albany with the Sheriff's Association. I wish I would have brought that document with me. And there's several bills that are out there. I was having a discussion earlier in the past, and I'm going to answer you first before I jump into the process of what's going on in Albany.